Welcome to Dyspraxic Rosie Writes, a channel where we talk about dyspraxia, chronic illness, and the writing life. Today we're going to talk about the 4 things I wish I knew about working with professional editors in traditional publishing before I first started working with them. I think this feels like a really timely video for me right now, considering that I just finished the copy edits on my second traditionally published book. I know that some of you have plenty of curiosity about how the traditional publishing process works. I know I did when I first started. I listened to so many podcasts. I was listening into every industry event I could. I was reading all the articles. I was talking to every professional I could. And now that I've been through this process, well, I'm nearly at the end of this process the second time now, I wanted to share with you a little bit what I have found helpful throughout this process and some 4 things that I wish past me knew when I first started. The first thing that I wish I knew back when I started this process was about the issue of timelines. I mean, when you first sign a publishing contract, you see all these, if you're not reaching your intended timelines, then this serious consequence and that serious consequence and another will occur. And yeah, that is absolutely true, but you ultimately have to remember that there's a reason for this. It's easy as a first-time author to get caught up in your story and your book as this heart and soul within you rather than what publishers look at it in terms of and what makes them so important of a partner with authors. And that's that to them, what you're producing is a product. Sure, they're passionate about what they're working on. Sure, they're in this because they love publishing and they love stories and they love the work of authors. Yeah, ultimately, your book is a product. So you have to think of this not in terms of they're bossing me around, the mean editors, but in terms of they have a reason for this. They want to get you out by a certain day. They want to pick a timeline that makes sense for the context of marketing your book. So as part of that process, you have a responsibility to be really clear about your timelines whenever there is flexibility within that, because they want to work with you. They want you to produce your best work. So that clarity and communication about your timelines is so important. And my main tip as a neurodivergent person, which many of my viewers are, or even a disabled person or person with a chronic illness, if any of those apply to you, the real safe rule to go with, if the question you're asked is, oh, well, when can you have this done by? Or it's a matter of, we were thinking of finishing by this date. Can you do that date? Always add up to a week, minimum 4 days more than you think you need in order to add a little bit of flexibility for any element of the process that you might not have seen coming or anything that takes just a little bit longer than you would have assumed. This next tip is more so about when you are deep within the editing process itself. The thing is, because obviously as the author, this thing's within the heart. No matter what you're writing, this thing is something that is coming from your own soul and your own mind. it's easy to attach a great deal of emotions to the process and feel a degree of upset and negative emotions when you get the surprise of a professional saying, that doesn't make sense, or you need to do that in a slightly different way. But, that's natural because that's a sign that you care. But really, to still look at this process professionally and to check in with those feelings and to be in control of those negative feelings. My main rule is whenever I start to feel any anger or upset or frustration or sadness or overwhelm or any sort of feelings that fall under that general category, I will try to make time to, if there's time to do so, if it's not like they want the draft in tomorrow, then if, as I look at this the very first time, I feel any of the negative emotions that I just described, then I will sleep on it. I will sleep on it, for lack of a better word, and just go back to it tomorrow when I have just a little bit of emotional distance from it. I mean, that's the main reason why whenever I dive into a manuscript and I receive the edits, the first thing I do isn't necessarily to act upon them right away, but it's to read through them and just wrap my brain around what exactly they are asking me and what that would require of me and how much time this would take and how I really truly feel about what that person is saying. And I think allowing that time for that emotional distance and that processing makes a world of difference, because editor-author relationships, you have to think of it as essentially like a partnership. That's the most essential mindset to adapt, in a sense that they want what's best for you. And if all you're responding with is, that's really stupid feedback, or that upsets me, or you're wrong, you are getting nowhere with allowing them to do their job and allowing them to understand exactly what your broader vision is. Speaking of the vision parts of things, another core lesson I've learned is that of maintaining balance during edits. So essentially, because that author-editor part of things, that relationship, is that of equally mutual partnership, you ultimately have to have that balance of understanding what you're trying to get at, but also understanding when an editor is suggesting something that's even just a little bit different than that, or wants to cut that entire section or that entire paragraph that you saw as totally essential, what exactly they're getting at, and really be able to figure out, is this something that I have to fight for? Or is this something that this editor has a really good reason for? Because what I learned when I was taking editing classes quite a while back was that really what a lot of trained editors, what they are trained to do is to be the first sort of judgment point on their audience, to really get to know who the audience is of the writers that publish something for their publication. Therefore, you always have to take a step back when their suggestion seems far away from what seems distant to you, and think, is my vision something that I am far too attached to remove substantial elements of, or is perhaps the reason they're saying, hey, maybe phrase this way, this instead, might be because it's more logical and is more so in the best interests of the reader that you are trying to reach. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you that the registration for the International Neurodiversity Conference is now open, something which I have the amazing privilege of speaking at this year. Links to the registration information for that, and also my talk as well, are in the description below. And if you would like a complimentary copy of my book, you have until December 17th to follow the instructions. The video that offers those instructions and the conditions to apply is also in the description below. And yeah, back to the video. Speaking of that partnership element, I feel this is essential to stress one more time in one specific point of view. And that's that far too often when a lot of authors start out working with editors, there's almost this sort of viewpoint of the editor as almost a godlike figure on a pedestal, an authority, a level above you on a ladder. And really, I mean, they are more so there to be your ally and the ally of the reader and represent the reader's interests. They are not, a good editor is not your school principal. They're not the bossy teacher. So really, like, you have to exercise a degree of honesty too when you don't know how to format things a certain way, or you didn't reply to that email about how long you think you need on that next stage of the process because, well, just life in general happened, or matters like that, or you're stuck on how to phrase something. You ultimately have to remember that they're your friend, and if you're already going through the editing process, they very much see potential in your work, and you don't have anything left to prove, truthfully. At that point, they're there because you are an investment. You are the product that they see as essential of being part of their backlist. So they want you to do well. So if life happens, if you're not sure how to do something, if you didn't understand an instruction, you just have to say it. You just have to like not pretend you know everything there is to know about this process. Because ultimately, every publisher, every editor, every individual you work with on this process, they will have their own preferences, and they will have elements that will make them just essentially a human, having their own preferences and their own ways of doing things. So really, like, every time you go through this process and you think you've learned everything there is to learn, there's always more to learn. So if you don't know, or you didn't know that you had to respond to that email right away, then don't stress about it. Just be honest about how they can help instead. But most importantly, it's about enjoying this process. I mean, it's a beautiful process in its own right, because it's the one form of like professional writing apart from film and television where it is a very collaborative process. And even though a lot is done from the comfort of your own workspace, there are so many other people involved who make this happen and get this out into the broader world. And so really focus, once you have got that book deal, you have crossed the most difficult part of the journey. So enjoy the privilege of being part of a professional publishing process and how it naturally unfolds. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope your preparations, if you do so celebrate for the holidays, are going well. And as I always like to say, happy reading, happy writing, my friends. Like, subscribe, share if that was informative for you.